In today's fight news, we start off with UFC President Dana White putting out a teaser on his Instagram account for the upcoming Conor McGregor-Michael Chandler fight. Looks like it might be officially signed. The notorious Conor McGregor also posted a coming soon teaser on his X account. Speaking of Conor McGregor, as we reported yesterday, Diego Lima, the coach of Charles Oliveira, stated that before the Makhachev fight, Conor McGregor was actually texting Oliveira, telling him to wait and not fight Islam. This is per MMA Fighting. Manager Ali Abdelaziz recently told Kevin Iole that a fight between Corey Sandhagen and his fighter Umar Nurmagomedov is a done deal, but the date hasn't been confirmed yet. Now on to some fight announcements, as featherweights Cub Swanson and Andre Fili will be battling at UFC 303 on June 29th. In a bantamweight matchup, we have Saeed Nurmagomedov taking on Montel Jackson on June 22nd at UFC Saudi Arabia. Also on the same UFC Saudi Arabia card, we have Magomed Gadzhiesulov versus Brenson Ribeiro at light heavyweight. The weights are officially in for this weekend's UFC Fight Night, Allen versus Curtis. And per Aaron Bronstetter, here are the 4 fighters that missed weight. Alexander Hernandez by 4 pounds, Cynthia Calvillo by 3 pounds, Melissa Mullins by 2 pounds, and Nora Cornole by 2.5 pounds. The women's strawweight matchup between Cynthia Calvillo and Piera Rodriguez is officially off because Calvillo missed weight by 3 pounds. The featherweight matchup between Alexander Hernandez and Damon Jackson will go on. However, Hernandez will be docked 20% of his fight purse, which will go to Jackson. This is per Mike Bond. While speaking to Sportsnet's Aaron Bronstetter, the BMF champion, lightweight Justin Gaethje, says he has nothing but respect for the former featherweight champion, Max Holloway, ahead of their UFC 300 BMF title fight. Gaethje's BMF opponent, Max Holloway, says that he's focused on the fight against Gaethje for the title, but he admits that there are plenty of options available if he comes out victorious after the UFC 300 event. Ahead of his big UFC 300 main event, former light heavyweight champion Jamal Hill told Give Me Sport that he can see himself moving up to the heavyweight limit to take on current interim heavyweight champion Tom Aspinall. I usually walk around maybe like 240 pounds. I'm 240 right now, bro. Bro, I'm trying to tell you, bro. I'm a big boy. I'm a big dog. It's possible. It's possible, bro. What the F is power advantage? The game is, it doesn't matter who is more powerful. What it comes down to is who's gonna hit who first. But we both got power. You can be 1,000 times more powerful than me. I hit you first? What does that mean? That's game. Sweet Dreams also had this to say about Aspinall. I like that fight. Tom's a great fighter. I'd have fun fighting against him. Former Olympic gold medalist and PFL champion Kayla Harrison recently checked in with Mike Bond of MMA Junkie to discuss how her current bantamweight cut is going and how she's feeling ahead of her UFC 300 fight against Holly Holm. There's going to be a nasty piece of this that I've just kind of surrendered to, but I feel really good. Everything I wanted is waiting on the other side of that scale. The current women's bantamweight champion, Raquel Pennington, recently spoke to Low Kick MMA, in which she spoke on Harrison possibly getting preferential treatment to a title shot, stating, "I will have a bitter taste if they do want to make her skip the line, and it takes away from the opportenities of all these other women." In which Harrison responded during her interview, "I would be saying that if I was Raquel too. I'd be scared shitless." Former champ Daniel Cormier recently spoke on the possibility of welterweights Ian Machado Gary and Colby Covington facing off after a back and forth they've recently had on social media. Colby's got to stand up on his words now and go fight that man. If he beats him, now we can still continue to think that he's in the championship picture. Gary, recently on MMA Fighting, said, "I'm too elite, I'm too fast, I'm too technically brilliant. He just doesn't stand a chance." Ahead of his recently announced middleweight matchup against Khamzat Chimaev, former middleweight champion Robert the Reaper Whittaker had this to say: "I think the most likely outcome is just a 5-round war. I'd love to get in there, just put him away in the first minute, but he's a tough dude, and I think this is going to be a tough fight." Speaking of Khamzat, he recently posted on his X account stating, "10 rounds, let's go, first time ever, let's do it, at UFC, at Dana White." The former middleweight champion Michael Bisping recently weighed in on his YouTube channel on whether or not he thinks Chimaev has a chance against the former champ Whittaker, stating, "He's going to have to pace himself, but if he paces himself, he might not get the finish, and he won't perform like he always does." While on the topic of Robert Whittaker, while speaking to Submission Radio, the former champ said this about how he possibly could have fought GSP a few years ago, stating, "There was a period where I was supposed to fight GSP. I would have loved that fight." While speaking to Radio Gasatarne, featherweight king Ilya Topuria said he doesn't like the idea of heading to Australia for a rematch with Alexander Volkanovski, stating, "I'm the world champion now. Why would I go defend the belt at my rival's house?" Per Jedi Goodman on X, these are Dana White's 5 biggest UFC events. The Ultimate Fighter Finale, UFC 157, Rousey vs. Carmouche, UFC 205, Alvarez vs. McGregor, UFC 229, Khabib vs. McGregor, and UFC 261, Usman Masvidal 2. Longtime UFC commentator Joe Rogan recently spoke out on the Sage Steele mishap that happened during an interview with UFC President Dana White, in which she called White Joe Rogan. "I think she just made a mental flub. When you're doing a podcast and you're interviewing someone, especially if you haven't done a lot of them, it's a high-profile thing, and you're doing Dana White, you're always thinking of what to say. She handled it the right way, too. She kept it in there. She didn't edit it out. It's funny. It's just a flub. I do it all the time. It happens." On a recent episode of his Impulsive podcast, YouTuber turned WWE professional wrestler Logan Paul spoke on the possible matchups between WWE and UFC fighters, stating, "Send me. I wrestled. I wrestle now. I would do it. I would totally do it. For the right dance partner, yeah, I would love to do a UFC fight. Now that you guys are partners, I think at the right time, it could make a lot of sense." We leave you with this impromptu face-off between Tough Season 32 coaches, featherweight champion Alexa Grasso, and former women's featherweight champion Valentina Shevchenko.